individuals, but I would like to have the chance to go to Vietnam. I actually took a specific course on recent international relations that focused on the Vietnam War. I took this course in 11th grade, so it's been 3 years, but from what I remember, there were certain circumstances in Southeast Asia that were sort of, at the time, America was very afraid that the Southeast Asian nations would fall communist. And so this was during the Cold War era, and China had fallen communist in 1949, and less than 15 years later, it looked like Vietnam was also going to do so if America didn't intervene. Thus, they sent troops, they had air bomb campaigns. That's a tough question. From an American perspective, it certainly seemed like the U.S. was afraid of the domino effect, that these nations would fall communist. And at the time, President LBJ was the one, and his cabinet, they had a lot of talks about how do we control this situation, what sort of decisions do we make, and I can't speak whether they made the right or wrong decisions, but I do think that they looked at many different perspectives. That's a great question, and I say that because my dad's generation was the age that males were drafted for the war. So my dad obviously was in China at the time, but he has a lot of friends in the U.S. Who were during that era, and some of them were drafted and felt very, I won't say patriotic, but they felt like they were serving their nation by going to this war. But then there were many individuals, 18 to 20-year-olds, who just didn't want to go to this war. And so, yeah, exactly, the students protested and no one showed up to classes and the university was canceled for a semester. To be honest with you, I think many people don't really know what happened. A large majority of the population is uneducated about the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. And what we learn, even in school, is certainly a biased view, as can be expected. I think most Americans would say that the Vietnamese War was long and deadly and largely uncalled for, but they're saying this without much knowledge of why the U.S. was involved, how involvement changed the global sphere of influence. So I don't think many Americans actually know what happened. The one prevailing thought that at least is in my head is the U.S. involvement in Vietnam was similar to the Soviet involvement in Afghanistan, and that, the Soviets didn't really learn from what happened to America, and their involvement in Afghanistan really led to was one of the main reasons that led to their downfall eventually.
Nicole Grismore, I'm 19 and from Arizona in the United States. To be honest, I don't know that much about it. I did like early on in high school, but in school they kind of just touch the surface of it. They don't really go much in depth, to be honest. I don't know. I know a lot of people still have bad feelings about Vietnam because, like, I know my uncle went to Vietnam, and like a lot of people still have relatives close to them that went, and so yeah, I know a lot of people still don't like to talk about it. Mostly older people, but yeah, it's still kind of a subject, I guess, that people don't like. No. I actually can't remember now. I would guess maybe about like half of them. I know, I was just thinking about this the other day. I can't remember.
My name is Leica, and I'm 19 years old, and I'm from Arizona. What do I think about that? Well, growing up in the States, we always had, we learned about it in our history classes, definitely, but it was a very different perspective than what I've learned about it coming here. to the Americans, there's always a justification for everything that happened, and they don't, I mean, yeah, they do believe that they made a mistake and it shouldn't have happened in the first place, but when they teach it to us in history classes, it's still like, this is the reason why it happened, and at the time it made sense. But I just went to Vietnam, saw the tunnels and the Vietnamese War Museum, and just got a completely different perspective on the entire thing, and people calling what the Americans did to the Vietnamese genocide, and that's what really stuck with me. And if I had been there during that time, hopefully I would have been against the war, because now, looking back on it, I think it was such a big mistake. It's so unnecessary. They had a lot of political justification for what was going on in Vietnam at the time, and how communism was becoming a big threat to the United States. And America likes democracy, and they think that democracy is one of the only right ways to do government and to rule a people. So having this completely different, almost opposite way of having a government, and the fact that it was working in different countries, or at least growing in popularity in different countries, what made it a threat to the United States, because they thought that they had to impose their own views on all of these different people, which is a very common outlook that the Americans have and that I've learned over the years. So yeah, they saw it as a threat, and they wanted to combat that. In part, yeah, because it was between the North and the South part of Vietnam, but also I think because of such a heavy American involvement, maybe it wasn't so much a civil war as just, I don't know, foreign intervention and something that they could have fixed on their own.
My name's Catherine Oliver, I'm 20 years old, and I'm from Connecticut, United States. What do I think about the Vietnamese War? Well, what I know, and what I've learned in school, which is not much, I honestly don't have too much to offer you. It was not focused specifically on the Vietnamese War, but I had a U.S. history course where it was briefly covered, but not in depth. And honestly, I'm just going to say that I'm not sure, because I don't want to say the wrong thing. I know that there was a lot of controversy over this, that the U.S. went too far, or I guess we stayed there longer than we should have, and it ended up hurting our own country in terms of American deaths, but I'm not really sure who won the war, if there was an actual victor or not. I guess there's still a lot of tension among anybody really who talks about it. The general consensus is that we didn't really belong there, I don't think. I think the U.S. kind of stepped out of place, especially in terms of how long we were there. And I think some people say that we did more harm than good. But overall, I guess it varies among nationalities in terms of what their opinion is of it. But other than that, I can't really say I know much more. I guess that shows what I was saying in terms of us being there too long, and instead of doing good, we were just putting our own soldiers at unnecessary risk and causing unnecessary death. And I think those people were just acting as martyrs, just to show that, you know, if like we want to reverse what they're doing to themselves. If we want them to stop burning themselves, then we're going to have to remove our troops from the war. Once again, I'm not too clear on the details, but I know that it all began after the terrorism, the attack on the Twin Towers on 9/11 is when things really took off, and we invaded the country, I guess. We declared war on them, but it has more to do than just terrorism on the U.S. I know there's a lot more involved. I guess it also has to do with nuclear weapons. So we're trying to control that because we don't really know what they're doing over there, but we've heard that there's nuclear arms being developed. And it also has to do with politics, and I can't say much more. Yes, that's what the war was titled after the attack on 9/11.
Hi, my name is Sylvia Lee. I'm 19 years old, and I'm from U.S. Pennsylvania. From what I've learned about it in high school, a few years ago, so I don't remember too much about it. I know that the U.S. didn't win, and it was a big topic because what we learn in history is always like the U.S. winning side is what we usually learn. So Vietnamese War was kind of something that wasn't touched upon too much, but when we did learn about it, it was pretty tragic from what I remember, and a lot of the younger generation back then did a lot of protests against the war in Vietnam. I can't remember the specific reasons why, but I know there were a lot of pictures of younger generation people protesting. I think so. I think it would have, it would have helped to stop the war because it's the public view, and the government takes what the public says, I guess. I think so, just because the idea of democracy is based on what the public says, and the government is represented by representatives that were picked by the public and voted on by the public.